just know that one song that sounds like Jimmy Crack Corn or whatever.
Okay, time. I like you guys. I don't want to create a situation where you're at odds with the Lord fan base. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to create a situation
Peace and love.
like
Peace and
Yeah,
love.
peace
where
and
there's
love,
like
peace and
Lord.
love.
I don't want to create a situation where there's Lord beef. Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you are doing well. We are doing a live Zoom meeting type conversation with the boys in the wonderful Oklahoma City band Chat Pile. Their latest record, Cool World, I almost said Cruel World, though it is reflective of that too, came out a little while ago, but I recently crossed paths with the band over at Primavera Sound. We did a quick little talk over there, and for whatever reason, they decided they wanted to talk to me twice. Maybe they have a bone to pick with me or something, and they really wanted to kind of get it out of the way, do a bit of a follow-up. Like, Anthony, we feel like that went terribly. We want to take you to task here on it. But look, I think these guys are one of the most exciting bands in the underground right now, and I thought it would be great to kind of go over their latest record with them, just all of the positive reception that album has seen, and anything else that comes up in the conversation. And yeah, off the bat, I appreciate you guys taking the time. Thanks for coming through.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah.
All right. I feel like I have to ask this because it is my own personal point of interest here, and I forgot to bring it up when we were talking. Is there a chance at some point I can get a hold of a Captain Ron Chat Pile hockey jersey because that jersey is fucking sick, and I was kind of taken aback to not see it in person when we were there at Primavera Sound, because that's got to be one of the sickest, most like amazing, like top 10 pieces of band merch I've seen in the last several years, and I feel like I got to get my hands on one.
Well, get this. We looked into making more of them, and they have raised the price of like the blank jersey by like 60% or something. So they become actually unaffordable for us to make new ones at the moment.
Is this a tariff thing?
Possibly.
Yeah,
it is
that was
from Canada, so maybe.
So another reason to hate Trump is what we're saying.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Yeah, is that the Chat Pile jerseys are now like $400 or whatever. It's like crazy.
So because of Republicans, Chat Pile hockey jerseys are now unattainable for the average person. You basically got to be a billionaire to own one.
Yeah,
that's right.
And if you own one already, you truly have like a collector's item now, because who knows when we'll be able to make these again. So
yeah, we've printed up like probably what 20 to 30,
I think it's been probably closer to like 40 at this point.
Yeah, something like that.
We see them at shows occasionally, and they're always like the true heads for sure. Like if someone has a jersey on, I'm like, I will indulge all your questions, my friend. You can punish the shit out of me. I don't care. You have the jersey. So.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it really kind of makes you guys special. The only sort of like relevant music act that I can think of that's like really killing it on like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and like, the hockey jersey merch front is like ICP. Sure. Like with every new run of merch, I feel like ICP has like 2 to 3 like sick hockey jersey,
awesome.
pieces of merch. And it's like, I feel like more artists and bands out there outside of like, maybe the hardcore scene could be doing that sort of thing. And it's like, and you guys are doing it. It's like, holy shit, So, I mean, hopefully it becomes more affordable in the near future
I hope
for you guys
so.
to come back to that.
I had a White Zombie hockey jersey in high school, and I always coveted the Sepultura one. That was like the other one that you would see back then.
I just can't believe, because Ron plays in it every single show, and it'll be like, we'll play a fest and it's 100 degrees outside. I don't know how you do it. Truly braver than the troops, Captain Ron.
Especially with him doing it while drumming too.
Yeah, no, it's crazy to me.
No, and I mean, I've always appreciated with like band pictures, like the devotion that he has sort of rocking it, because it almost makes him like the band mascot, Because I feel like, for people who maybe have seen maybe the logo in passing, they might see you guys and be like, what's this band? Who are these guys? But then they see him in the jersey and it's like, oh, okay. Like Chat Pile's mascot is there. So, I mean, they must be Chat Pile.
Yeah, these guys like to have a little fun, I think. Is
heavily influenced by John Fishman from the band Fish.
the pan down. And Danny Carey, he does basketball jerseys, right?
Yeah,
he's
Danny
more
Carey as
he's
well.
more of a basketball jersey guy. But.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the day when, cities or whatever will just give me like hockey jerseys of whatever city we're playing in.
Yeah.
Like that's
That
the
would
true
be,
dream. But
yeah, true.
So when not rocking the chat pile merch, it's fish merch.
that's right.
Okay. Killer. I feel like this is a good time to maybe transition to some of the maybe what some people might read as kind of like the unlikely influences of the band, especially like musically. I mean, I feel like, and obviously this is the case when people are like kind of writing about or discussing your music for the most part. I think what comes up first in discussions are like a lot of the post-hardcore and like noise rock influences, be that sort of like a Melvins or an Albini, that sort of thing. But I feel like in the wake of a lot of that coverage and also interviews that you guys have done and sort of efforts you've made to kind of like discuss your musical influences and celebrate them, especially Stin, there are like these nu metal connections that I feel like maybe more music snob types might not necessarily bring up or pick up on, because I think like a lot of people kind of see 2000s or late 90s era metal music, especially some of those rap fusions, as kind of like a cultural red herring. Like it happened, we look back upon it with shame, and we don't talk about it or bring it up because it's cringe and it's terrible and it should have never happened. But like you're out here being like, no man, Korn fucking rules, and
Well,
feel
I mean,
inspires me, and
yeah.
is connected to my bass playing.
Well, I would maybe agree with most people in that I think a lot of that stuff is terrible. I kind of think sort of the like turn of the century is sort of like a really low point for culture in general, but especially like post 9/11, obviously, and all that. But my main argument is that I think for the most part there are like 3 to 4 good new metal bands, and but that's like any genre, right? It's like whether it's thrash or noise rock or anything in that kind of world, it's like you have like 4 to 5 great bands and then a lot of the worst music you've ever heard in your life. So but Korn is the one I go to bat for. They're like my favorite band of all time. And in fact, I met Monkey at Hellfest, and it was
I saw that picture.
Dude, it was one of the best moments of my life and also terrifying. Like I was shaking, like talking to him because I was so fucking nervous. And then like when it was done, it was almost like being in a car wreck or something where you're like trying to reacclimate yourself to real life and you're just like full of adrenaline and stuff. So yeah, that was a really big moment for me, that happening.
He was nice. He was like, "What's up, guys? This is my son here." And he was just like,
he could not have been nicer.
Dude. Yeah. He was cool guy.
Like, what are some, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if you're a Korn fan, you probably have like differing opinions on like maybe artistically when the band started to like fall off. I remember sort of like loving back in the day, like Follow the Leader, fucking with some tracks on Issues, and then after that, like not really being a huge fan of a lot of what the band did after that. Like, where's the cutoff point for
before
you
start
with Korn? What's the Korn debate among the band? Like the Korn assessment among the band?
Before you start, I will just say I think Stin is both the best person and most insane person to answer this question, just because like he's the most knowledgeable. But like you give them so much leeway, like your point when you're like they're bad, I'm like you are insane that you think that's.
He was standing up for that White album with the crow, like the mechanical crow. He was like, "There's some good songs on that."
Like how unashamed are we talking about here? Like, are we in the car playing the Fred Durst, Jonathan Davis diss track to each other, and we're like, guys, listen to these bars, guys.
I will say,
listen to these bars.
The beginning of that song.
I would say the riff at the beginning is excellent, but
the riffs are crazy. It's true. The riffs are crazy.
But so no, that song's terrible. Yeah.
To kind of answer your question, I fuck with every album to some extent, and then obviously some are better than others. The golden era is self-titled through Take a Look in the Mirror, and then what happens is Head leaves the band, and they go through this kind of like lost period, which would be See You on the Other Side, which in my opinion is their worst album, up until the paradigm shift when Head comes back. And then you kind of have this like third arc of their career, which is like the Head reunion era, which we're in right now. Um, but I would say like, dude, if you've only like messed with a couple songs on Issues is their perfect 10
Yeah,
record.
it's my
Wow.
favorite by
Yeah.
them for sure.
Wow.
It's produced by Brendan O'Brien, has like this amazing like woody production to it. It just sounds like a band actually like playing their instruments. And I would say like that's the biggest flaw with like kind of the latter period of their career is that like especially that last album that they put out, Requiem, it just sounds like laptop music, like it just doesn't have that natural feel. Although I've been seeing reports that the new album they're recording currently is going to be on 2-inch tape, and that they're actually like doing live takes and stuff. So, holding that hope for that one. But yeah,
Gotta
like
have some good songs is the
that's
main
true.
thing.
Well, I don't see that's the thing with Korn though, is that they always do have good songs. What they get in the way of themselves with is like usually production choices. And the production choices sometimes are so bad that it actually steps on what could be a fantastic song, you know? And like something that's happened like since the paradigm shift is they can't get away from like infusing these like electronic elements into their music, which I think is like not necessarily the smartest idea for them.
Yeah,
Are we talking here
totality.
like these are like residuals from the dubstep era,
Yes,
or
Yes.
yeah.
okay, yeah.
But it's even before then because See You on the Other Side, it's produced by The Matrix, which is like a pop production team. And it sounds like it. Like they do like Hillary Duff records and stuff. And that's where that whole thing starts. And they don't ever really get away with it with a handful of exceptions. So that would be my first production tip. And then, yeah, like probably just like playing in a room together live would be like the other tip I would give them on that. Not that you like not for me to tell the best band on earth what to do, but
Like I feel like as somebody who's been a big fan of their music at some point, and I'm sure you have opinions on this too. I feel like you can't quite just discuss Korn from a musical standpoint. I feel like there has to be sort of like a philosophical analysis of the band as well, especially in the wake of all of these like more recent eras where you're sort of seeing like this kind of born again ethos, coming from members like Monkey and Fieldy and so on and so forth. Like what's your take on that? Like I remember being a kid and thinking like this band is like such a like kind of going against the grain of a lot of the sort of like social conservatism and religious rot that I thought was kind of going on in society at the time when I was a teenager. And then like years later, I'm seeing one of the guys like jamming with Mike Huckabee while Mike
yeah.
Huckabee's on bass on like on his talk shows. Like what the fuck, it kind of feels like we've arrived at a very weird place.
Yeah, well, it's really complicated because kind of like to your earlier statement, yes, they come along at a time when like, okay, so alternative music around the time that Korn shows up until that point had been kind of this sort of like American underground indie rock sort of thing that had been blown up by Nirvana and signed by all these big labels, and it was just like a huge part of the culture, right? But all that's sort of like marketed by these sort of like punk rock ethos and this sort of like left political awakening and all this kind of stuff. But then in '94, there's kind of this sea change in alternative rock where all of a sudden you get sort of this like darkness for darkness sake kind of like aesthetic. So you have bands like Korn, Tool comes to mind, like Nine Inch Nails. So all of a sudden there's like this shift. And it does have this kind of like anti-family values, anti kind of religious sort of sentiment to it, but not a whole lot else. There's like not really a lot
I mean there was
politically going on,
the Family Values tour,
Yes, exactly.
the whole aesthetic of which was to kind of poke fun at that sort of
Yes.
mindset.
So it's sort of just kind of this kind of like I consider like rebellion for rebellion's sake, or however you want to see it. But then these guys get rich. That's always like a problem with people's like values and whatnot, right? But then like in Head's case, so he's the one who jammed with Mike Huckabee, and his
Yeah.
story is interesting because like the band for the most part is collectively doing meth from the beginning. And as each album goes on, more and more members get sober, but he's like the last man out. And his meth problem gets so bad by the time that he quits the band that like like skinheads are coming up to his house trying to like kill members of his family because of drug deals gone bad, and he's going through these like insane like bouts of like paranoia and probably some type of mental break, I would assume. And so because of the drugs, because of the mental issues, he jumps into this sort of religious fervor that only someone going through that type of like internal struggle would do. And in those events, he ends up like making all these. He goes broke because he uh, makes investments with all these like shady like religious real estate people and like grifters and
I didn't
stuff.
know you dove this deeply into
No,
this.
he's
I
like,
didn't expect this.
It's historian levels with this.
Uh, and so, but in the background, while he's off doing his thing, Fieldy is the one who also becomes extremely religious, sort of empowered by the success that he's seeing in Head's life at this time. So they're like the two evangelical members of the band, and Fieldy's actually not in the band anymore at this current state. So anyway,
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's out. So the one guy who has kind of held steadfast to his beliefs from like beginning to end is Jonathan Davis. Like he is not a religious guy. He's openly non-religious. And I actually think it's kind of beautiful that they can keep this band of bros together where you got Crazy Head over here, being super religious. You got Fieldy being super religious. You got Monkey kind of like not caring about anything. And then Jonathan being, hardcore teenage atheist or whatever. It's awesome.
Right. Notably you have bands like System of a Down who haven't really been able to kind of overcome the divides personally and artistically that they've had over
that
the
divide's
years.
weirder though, because like the drummer's just like a complete right-wing freak, right?
Right. No,
it's so overtly political. It just seems like it would have come up before now, but I don't know. Yeah, that's a very strange one to me.
Comparatively, what kind of divides do you guys feel like you're having to overcome personally to sort of keep Chat Pile going? Aside from obviously, I mean, I don't know how in the tank all of you are for Fish, or if it's just Captain Ron. I mean,
I'd say it's mainly Ray and Ron. Yeah,
I like Fish.
I'm Fish tolerant, I would say. I'm not fully ready to cross over into saying I like them or like listening to them, but as I've gotten
they've opened
older,
my mind to it. Yeah. Like, because we get exposed to it in the van now, and like, there's I like fusion, and there's like that element of Fish, and so that kind of keeps me hooked into it. But I don't know if I've made the full crossover yet.
I just came out yesterday as feeling like the band has the best Ben and Jerry's ice cream flavor, which I feel like is something everybody should be able to bond over.
I'm trying to think if there's anything like truly divisive between the four of us.
As far as what comes up on the aux when you're in the band.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty vocally anti-Metallica, and the rest of the guys I think are into Metallica, but even then I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything.
Here's the thing is that anytime all of us soften on our hard stances because we just force each other to listen to the bullshit we like, and then eventually people are like, all right, fine, this is okay. It's not as bad as I thought it once was.
I was saying to the van, I think last tour, I was like, you know what, guys, AC/DC sounding better to my ears these days. When I used to probably think they were one of my least favorite bands, but we've just listened to it. Like it comes up, we have a big playlist, or something will get brought up and we'll just listen to a full album in the van or something. I'm like, I don't know. For Those About to Rock kind of goes fucking insane. That song is awesome.
No, I've felt similar experiences because I mean I think kind of going into college is when I had my most sort of like staunch music opinions, and then kind of like, being the music director and general manager of a college radio station for several years and having to deal with everybody's music opinions at all times, like kind of opened me up to things that I don't think I would have heard otherwise. And these days I'm much more of I mean, maybe some people would disagree from the looks of some of my reviews and the reactions to them, but like I'm much more of a poptimist than I think I ever was when I was younger. Whereas I just like wouldn't tolerate a lot of top 40 stuff at all. And now I feel like I have a bit of a balance to where I can kind of like enjoy, both the underground and the mainstream at the same time and get something out of it.
I just feel like I'm at an age where I just don't believe that any music is objectively bad or like perfect or whatever. It's just I realize the power of subjectivity, and so it's hard for me to just take a hard stance on anything. I'm sure, there's probably songs by bands I think I hate that I would like if I just got the right exposure to it or if I had the right experiences with it or whatever. It's just, I don't know. It's just hard for me to draw a line in the sand anymore with anything.
Yeah, like Lord. I mean, you've just heard the one Jimmy Crack Corn song, which I
Yeah,
mean
That's
you're
right.
okay with. But if you heard more tracks, you might, be
Yeah,
more
exactly.
open. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, knowledge is power, as the old saying goes. Like, there's some point in my 20s where I was like, enough being hip and stuff. I need to know about Fleetwood Mac and shit. I need to I know Fleetwood Mac is very cool now, but it wasn't cool 20 years ago or whatever. Tusk used to be $5 everywhere,
No, it's true.
before people realized that is such an important record. But I don't know.
No, it's absolutely true. It's sort of and we're in the same age range, and it's sort of interesting to sort of see like what artists from sort of the 80s or 90s, which, maybe had the peaks of their careers in the 60s and 70s, which would have been legacy acts by that time that we were kind of like coming into music. And just later down the road are kind of like getting this critical reevaluation from Zoomers and people who are younger, like, actually, this is really sick. And it's like, when we were getting into cool music, when I was young, like nobody was having discussions about fucking Steely Dan. I don't know if you guys disagree, but like, among like,
No, I'm with you.
That's something, yeah, past 10 years thing.
Yeah.
Seemingly everyone loves Steely Dan. It's very, yeah. There's
Right.
a lot of that though that you see where it's like bands that are now seemingly classic bands that are, genre defining and stuff. It's like, yeah, I don't remember anyone talking about some of this stuff years ago. Like, I don't know.
No,
Me and my buddies, we felt like true explorers, listening to that, like John Mayall's Blues Breakers and like all sorts of like weird shit like that,
Yeah.
All right. I wanted to kind of get into a little bit, not so much maybe the musical or ideological divides among the band, but maybe more about like what kind of unites you guys, because musically and thematically, there's so much cohesiveness across everything that you guys have put out so far. Especially with your last two albums, I wanted to sort of like, discuss some of the imagery that you guys attach to your music with, be it some of the music videos or the cover art that you put onto your albums. I kind of wanted to know like what the source or direction for this is. I mean, I think, the message reads pretty clear. It sort of seems like you guys are trying to comment on some kind of like societal rot or bleakness in modern American society that you sort of see around you where you're from. Though, I see Captain Ron's chilling by the pool there, which seems like pretty nice, frankly. But I mean, what is it about, I guess, that kind of like setting or vibe or, the Oklahoma City area or the surrounding towns there that sort of like inspired you to be like, we need to sort of blast this out there and sort of make this, what represents the band?
I think for me, it's just one of those things where we've all lived here more or less our whole lives, and it's kind of that whole like frog in the boiling pot of water analogy, where you just kind of day to day live your life, and so much to where you ignore the reality of your surroundings. And in Oklahoma City in particular, it's easy to do because you have to drive a car everywhere, which has a tendency to kind of disconnect you from like the physical reality around you. And I think it just at a certain point one day, I just kind of started noticing just the sort of physical rot around us. And when you get kind of tapped into that, it's hard to ignore it, especially in a place like this that has a lot of that. It's just all
it's everywhere.
concrete, strip malls, and I don't know. There's something kind of powerful about that I felt like I wanted to capture, like in our visuals as much as possible. And the thing is it's like it's kind of easy to do here because there's endless amounts of subject matter to pull from. There's endless photos to take. There's endless video to capture. I mean, there's a lot to love about Oklahoma City, but there's a lot to dislike as well. And it's oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, is this also sort of like something you'd say that you're trying to convey through something like the Funny Man video, for example? It's just kind of this like very specifically middle American brand of destitution that sort of seems to be getting exemplified through all the video clips in that video.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for us to take credit for the video side of things because with those, we tend to just let the directors do their own thing. We'll give them some advice and stuff, but hopefully with that, I think maybe the message of our music is clear enough that these directors can kind of like take the raw material of the song and make those translations, and they sync up really well with our intended message. So
yeah, they're building off of the message you're already kind of putting out there, you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. So like we can't take credit for that necessarily, but I guess other than just indirectly like the music inspiring those images. But yeah, I mean I love the Funny Man video. To me, what I like about that is it sort of captures there's always like a hauntedness to the idea of like your home when you're not in it, and the stillness that might exist there, and like how that's can be sort of unsettling. I think that video captures that really well,
Yeah, I like that the people who do the videos get to do like their own interpretation. Like Sin said, we'll give them some guidance, but a lot of times, there's definitely multiple videos of ours where it's like,
I was about to say, I met with that guy for a couple hours talking about what we didn't want for that video.
That's usually more what you'll do, right? It's more like, this is what we don't want, rather than like do this kind of.
Only a couple videos we've had to do that. People we truly don't know. East Coast people that don't really understand the
planes. East Coast people they don't get it.
Yeah. Want to New Yorkify Oklahoma.
I would come into your house and tell you how to
the bigger problem we have that are Europeans who try to do stuff for us is like it always comes back so wrong because they just don't understand the true Americana aesthetic.
No.
Now that you
guys,
probably
some one-to-one country we just haven't met. It's not France, clearly, but
there's got to be an Oklahoma of Europe, right? Somewhere.
I was actually going to say, like, you guys have just spent a fair bit of time like touring through Europe, and I wanted to sort of like ask if in your experience, I mean, obviously, touring and performing, you're just kind of getting a small slice of wherever it is that you're kind of playing shows, but like still, when you were out there, did you see that the sort of, I don't know, type of societal rot that your music and sort of like the visuals often speaks to? Is there a university? Is there a universality to that at all? Have you been finding that in other ways or in other places that you've been? Or it just sort of seems very unique to where you are?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit in the UK. I think they get it, like for sure.
Yeah,
but like,
I feel like that's there.
Yeah,
sure.
But like mainland Europe, no, dude, they don't understand. I'm not to say they don't have their own problems they have to contend with, but it's different than what's going on.
Yeah,
in the middle of America.
I don't think we went anywhere that I would say is worse than where we live currently. I'm just like, I mean, there's stuff that I love about Oklahoma City more than other places that we've traveled to, but I mean, yeah, we live in a pretty ugly place.
Well, I think
also all of America is ugly, though. I just wanted to go on record.
Yeah, sure.
Europe is more beautiful. I mean, Spain, take me away. I want to live in Madrid tomorrow, yesterday. But all of America is ugly, and Canada also. I'm lumping you in with us.
Oh yeah, Canada.
Horrible mistakes.
Yeah, lots of natural beauty in our continent, but the cities in general
we're fucked
in America are just kind of nightmare. Every town, every city, because even like the big cool cities now, there's copy paste like luxury condos everywhere, just ruining the skylines, and I don't know, it's very strange.
Wait, to rewind, that is something I did actually going into this want to ask about, because like obviously there is like a lot of, as I said, bleakness and rot sort of represented in the music and the art that you guys present. That's directly connected to your surroundings in Oklahoma. But like, I was sort of curious if you could all kind of collectively speak to like some silver linings or positive things about where you got, like, what are some things that you actually enjoy about, you know, if there is anything positive or nice to say, you know,
I think
it's like,
Oklahoma.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the food is legitimately great here. There's at least in the city itself in OKC, it's not as like white as the rest of the state, and there's lots of uh, Central and South American immigrants here, and I think Oklahoma per capita has the most Vietnamese people, other than Texas and California in the United States. And so I don't know. There's lots of good food here, in my opinion. If you like weed, we're kind of like the weed mecca right now for the U.S., which is kind of crazy, even though it's just medical here. But I think the loose regulations have made it kind of the Wild West here for that. And I don't know. I think all of us would agree that like I never really felt like growing up and going to shows here. It always felt like there was like cool punk bands coming through and cool art, and just like I know there was never a moment when I was like 14 or 15 and going to all these shows where I was like, oh man, I got to get out of here and get to a real city where this. I was like, man, I wish more people knew how cool these bands are
Yeah.
that were here.
So what a lot of people don't realize is that Oklahoma City is literally the crossroads of I-35 and I-40. So any band that is touring by van just will end up driving through Oklahoma City by force of nature. And because of that, a lot of indie bands, smaller bands throughout, I mean, my entire lifetime have stopped here. And I've seen some incredible shows because of it. So we've never like have ever lacked like a good music scene here because it's just always an active thing. You know, we have a great art community, DIY scene. It's just been that way my whole life out here. So that part of it's really great. And it's extremely cheap to live here too, which, you know, is like part of like why we're able to do this full time. Like if we were experiencing the level of success that we are experiencing now, but lived in like Los Angeles, we'd all still have day jobs, you know, and we can afford to do this full time now because we live in one of the cheapest places on earth, you know.
Yeah, I mean, most of the negative stuff about here is just state politics stuff, like just the political
Politics
stuff,
issue.
and just the kind of blight and
The weather.
decay and the weather. True,
The weather.
yeah, it was some of the
I
worst
like
weather.
the weather personally.
Yeah, I mean, I
We
like
get a
the
lot of
rain.
we get all extremes of it all. We get a lot of good rain. I like the heat. I mean, I've worked outside a lot, you know, and I don't know. I'm just like part of I like the extremity of the weather kind of makes me who it's part
Yeah,
of who
no,
I
I mean,
am, I guess.
I'm from the
So, and
town that's
wind
been
and shit. I mean,
Just
yeah, so I
the
don't,
winds is
I like
brutal.
it.
the wind kind of drives me
Extremity,
crazy,
are we
but-
talking about sort of like tornadoes, floods?
Yeah. Well, it's
It
everything.
gets super hot, and then it will get like we'll have horrible ice that will like destroy our city, and we'll have no
Like, truly.
opportunity.
Yeah, they'll just be
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
25,
like,
30-mile winds, like randomly. All done for its time.
Hmm.
It's
Whatsoever.
biblical shit. It's
Yeah.
cool. I like it.
It builds
Yep.
character, and it's definitely a part of our identity here because if you
Yeah.
live in Oklahoma, you know who all the like weather reporters are, and you tune in every spring and watch all the storm coverage. You know, it's definitely a big part of being an Oklahoman.
Yeah, I mean, my hometown of Moore, Oklahoma, which is the southern suburb of OKC, like the only things we're famous for is that Toby Keith is from there, and we've been hit by 2 F5 tornadoes. So like I mean, the elementary school I went to was completely destroyed in 2013 by an F5. So I mean, it's definitely something that is like, yeah, everyone here has very strong opinions about weather and weather coverage. I mean, the National Weather Service, even though it's being defunded right now, is based here in Norman, where the University of Oklahoma is and stuff. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff, I mean, if we just had like good public transit here, I don't know. There's a lot of other
any public transit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
just added
Sidewalks.
a bus. Yeah, like a lot of the roads don't even have sidewalk. It's like it's truly meant as a driver's city. And the roads are dog shit, so it's not
Yeah.
even like a good city to drive in. It's like, you know, you're just going to blow out your tires with potholes because it's a poor city. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, the things that you can do here culturally, I think are good. Like it's like any city in the modern era. I mean, if you live here or Boston or wherever, like it's like you're gonna hang out with your friends, you're gonna go to shows, you're gonna go to good restaurants, you're gonna go to a museum. I mean, I don't know. I think in the modern era, a lot of that stuff has kind of evened out in most cities, but it really is just kind of the political situation here that is such a nightmare that kind of just brings everything down in a way.
If you could speak to, because I feel like there are so many people that are just like not aware or familiar with it in any way whatsoever. And you guys, for a lot of, underground music fans, like kind of came out of nowhere being from Oklahoma City. Like, what does the music scene kind of look like currently? And what exactly, to you guys attribute your ability to kind of come up through it, with it being so hardcore based from what I understand, and from there, like not really, obviously there's a music scene there, but it's not like before Chat Pile, there were like a million bands that sounded like what you guys do.
Yeah.
So there was like this major popular precedent for,
Well,
your sound. And at this point, like, you guys play venues there and you're selling them out, you know?
yeah.
So, like talk to that a little bit in terms of like the musical makeup of the area and the reception for what you guys do out there, even though historically there hasn't been a million bands that sound like what you do.
Yeah, I mean, historically, the underground here is like incredibly fractured. Like it does exist, and there's like a scene of underground musicians, but because we are such a small city, it's not like, oh, there's like there's 15 metal bands and then there's 15 this. It's like, no, it's like the same 200 people or so all hang out together, and this group is into shoegaze, and these five people have a punk band, and these six people have this or whatever. So throughout like the entirety of the time that I've been going to shows and stuff, there's never been like a cohesive scene in terms of like a sound or anything. The
Right.
cohesion is more just by the very nature that
The
you're willing
people.
to, yeah, the people that are involved, essentially, like they're all kind of doing their own thing, but they all know each other because it's sort of like any port in a storm sort of deal. And I would say that was the case all the way up until like COVID happened, and then there was this great like reset button hit, and when it came back, it was like
Hardcore.
extremely like hardcore focused, and so that's where like, we're older, and all these people playing hardcore music are like way younger than us, and I would say that like the experience that they're having is a lot different than our experience, because everyone they know is kind of making the same type of music, um, and there doesn't really seem to be as much fracturing. I would say there's also maybe like a small shoegaze component to like the scene here as well, but even in the broader sense of the world, those two scenes seem to be kind of like
Very
intermingled a
popular.
little bit. Yeah. So that's kind of the makeup of it. And as far as like how we're influenced by that, or are influencing it, I don't know if there is a lot of cross-pollination,
Hmm.
because the four of us have been making music for 20 years in this city, and nobody has ever cared about it. In fact, I would go as far as to say that like at least the bands that Ron and I were in were kind of hated because we were making cat pile like music 15 years ago, when that stuff couldn't have been less cool and nobody wanted anything to do with it.
Hmm.
um and then now it's like, if the kids like chat pile, I'm not necessarily hearing it in the bands that they're making right now. I don't know, do you guys, can you think of anyone maybe that I'm not thinking of?
Uh,
I'm not super
yeah,
connected.
not really. I mean, I know Discern, they're doing like the hardcore kind of metal fusion stuff, but I know that uh they're a cool band. If everyone should check out Discern from Oklahoma City, but they've kind of been playing a little noisy. I know their guitarist has told me that he is like into my guitar stuff, and I can kind of hear it, but it's still, yeah, it is, you
It's
know,
minimal. Whatever, any influence we have right now seems to be, maybe, I think maybe the influence is more like, hey, we can start a band in Oklahoma City and maybe be popular. But it's not like, hey, we should sound like Chapile.
Well, maybe
That
not
other
like
band
in
is way
maybe.
more influential. What's that? Creeping Flesh? Or what's that?
Peeling Flesh are
Peeling
pretty. They're
Flesh?
popping off for
Hmm.
sure, and they're from here in Tulsa, the slam
Yeah, they're
band.
way
Hmm.
more influential than we are locally, for sure.
Well, maybe not influence in sort of like a direct musical sense, but is there at least, like, from what you guys have seen among the various music fans in the area, crossover appeal? I mean, obviously it's different genres, it's different styles, but like you're still both making respectively heavy music.
Oh yeah,
That's like
yeah,
quite
yeah.
cathartic.
I would say in that regards, there's definitely a lot of like hardcore kids who would come to a Chat Pile show, most
Yeah.
definitely.
I think they're just stoked that, because it's kind of like our city. I mean, I even have felt this way in the past, where it's like, I don't know, no one either even knows that this city exists, or, we kind of have like a little brother complex with Texas and stuff. So it's just like, I think for a lot of people, it's like, oh, there's a band from here that people know. That's awesome. I'm gonna like them. It's like, so I think since we've kind of been getting some notoriety at all, I think people just been, at least to me, seemingly very proud of us, even if it
Yeah,
wouldn't be their
that's
thing.
probably the main like that I get in town is I'm pretty guys. So like, I love your band. So, oh, we're together, doing this.
So you're roboting pretty
Yeah,
You're roboting
crazy.
hard, yeah.
roboting
Couldn't
hard.
really couldn't really
But
hear.
I think what Ron's saying is essentially like more than anything, people are just like, we are so proud of you. That seems to be
Yeah.
like kind of the gist.
Right.
I feel like less connected to like the Oklahoma City scene, and I consider us kind of more part of a scene of like the
Denton
Greater Plains.
here,
It's like, yeah, it's like
Kansas
Denton,
City.
Kansas City. Like that's more like where I've seen that I actually feel like we are literally a part of, as opposed to just like Oklahoma City itself. And even out there, like parts of like Austin, Texas in
Yeah.
there too. There's definitely bands that I feel like some kinship with out there. But that to me is like the scene right now. It's not necessarily OKC specifically.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wanted
bands
to know
like
if there's any Austin sort of rivalries in terms of it being a music city going on or anything.
Yeah, you just don't even like consider. I don't know, because they're just like their own thing. And the thing too is like Austin's become so like corporatized and homogenized that like
Right, right.
it just doesn't mean the same thing that it used to even 10 years ago. That's not to say there aren't great bands out there, or like there's not like cool shit going on. But yeah,
For
I don't
sure.
know. I just don't even like think of it in the same category, really.
Yeah, we end
Uh,
up playing there a lot, just because it is like, it's 6 hours away. So it's, not super, super far, but it's like a lot of bands, if you're from here, you go down to Austin and play all the time. They just have such a big scene there, and, big venues and infrastructure for it. And you just end up playing with a ton of Texas bands, being an Oklahoma band, and there's just, yeah, a lot of that.
I feel like you guys spoke to this a little bit earlier, just in terms of like talking about the place where you live and the affordability of it, making it even possible for you to sort of be doing what you're doing full time with Chat Pile. And all of you have been involved with music and have been in various bands for like a long time up until this point. And I sort of wanted to ask you if in your experience, kind of like being involved in the underground and all of these bands, and sort of being able to sort of see the success that you have seen with Chat Pile so far, and sort of having like an intimacy and an understanding of the music industry in multiple different eras, like, what do you feel like are some of the challenges facing the band currently in something like the streaming era, where it sort of seems like increasingly every year, regardless of what type of artist you are, you've got to be making music that's like replayable and it scales. And, despite whether you're an underground or a mainstream artist, it sort of seems like, with everything being consumed on Spotify in the way that it is, that everything's being put along the same track, despite the fact that not all music appeals in the same way that a viral hit on Spotify might, regardless of what kind of music you make. It sort of seems like everybody's being faced into the same kind of like metrics, or sort of like, appeal qualities. And I feel like, I love seeing what you guys have been able to pull off so far, because musically and artistically, it sort of seems like you guys are going against the grain of all of that. Maybe not consciously or purposefully, but it's just sort of nice and heartening to sort of see the success that you guys have had so far, despite the fact that it doesn't seem like you're interested at all in sort of appealing in the same way that a lot of, popular music might on TikTok, or the sort of music that gets easily playlisted on, certain popular playlists on music streaming platforms.
I'm not interested in that bullshit at all. And in fact,
No.
if we had to bend over to to make the algorithm work for us. I just wouldn't even want to do this. I just don't care. Like we went into this band with zero intention of anyone ever hearing it. We were just going to do it because that's just what we've done forever. And it just happened to like get popular, through strokes of luck or whatever. But, I think something that I've noticed that is very special to me through becoming popular, like in this era, is that it really seems like our fans have like a really deep connection with the music that we're making for whatever reason. And I think, I would attribute that to the fact that we go against the grain so much and that we are doing our own thing and that we try to be as sincere with what we're doing as possible. And we're not trying to like game the system in any way, and it's like the amount of people who put like weight on like Spotify streaming numbers and stuff like that. It's like our numbers might be low compared to like some other bands that you see. And sometimes I'm like shocked. I'm like, oh my God, this band has like 5 million monthly listeners or whatever. Who's even heard of this before? And you see that kind of play out in real life where like we'll go play a tour. And granted, like maybe the theaters we're playing are like kind of on the smaller side, 300 to 600 cap venues, but we're selling them out every single city we go to. And I think the reason for that is like there's like a real connection to our music as opposed to just some type of algorithmic playlist bullshit that has no connection to anybody. Like I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to articulate in words like what the difference is between us and maybe other bands, but I just like to think that we're not bullshitting anybody and we just are who we are. And we're not trying to play some game like this could end tomorrow and we could all go back to day jobs and I'd be like happy knowing that we never had to do anything. We didn't have to make a TikTok song or whatever.
Yeah, we haven't had a viral song or anything, which is, I don't know, it's kind of cool that we've been able to amass some amount of fan base and like people are getting tattoos of our music and stuff. And it's like we don't have like I mean, maybe Why off of God's Country is the closest we've gotten to like people kind of like a specific song standing out to people like that. But all of us are fans of the album, like the concept of the album. Like I want all the songs to thematically go together, and like our music is meant to, in my opinion, our music is meant to be listened to from, an album from the first song to the last song. All right. It's not really playlist music, in my opinion, which I listen to a lot of playlists on shuffle and stuff. And like, I get it, but I mean, the way that we at least write the stuff and we spend a lot of time thinking about track sequencing, like how the songs go together and like what makes sense. It's like it's intended to all be listened to at once, and I think that is definitely, I mean, there's plenty of bands that still do that, but yeah, I think a lot of music right now is like we have to have one song that blows up or something, and it's like it has to it has to go viral in some way. Or
it's such a stupid goal too because it's so short term. It's like
disposable.
the idea, yeah, it's so disposable. It's like people do you not realize how the internet works. It's like, yeah, something is huge for 2 days and then it disappears into the wind, never to be heard of again. It's like if you want any sustainability as an artist, you got to get away from trying to game the algorithm and the whatever. Like you've got to just make genuine connections with people. And I know that's like an ethereal thing that you can't necessarily like put metrics to, but that's just the fact of the matter. If you want to stick around and have any actual like cultural value, I don't know. You just can't. You can't be like a one hit wonder, 2 day, 15 minute of fame TikTok sensation.
Yeah, success is like so hard to do. That shouldn't be your goal at all if you're doing this, because you have to debase yourself a lot if you're just trying to get success only. You just got to be an artist and a real musician, and if success happens, you're blessed, I guess. That's it.
Yeah, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. I mean, none of us.
Yeah.
When people are like,
still maybe made great art. Hopefully, I don't know. If you work at it, you'll make good art. That's the real goal.
Yeah,
my favorite thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, Raygun. I mean, I'm sure you echo some of what Stin was saying there in terms of like making a genuine connection there through what you guys are creating. But I'm sure for how do you feel like you play into that, or how do you sort of like help achieve that yourself as a member of the band? Because I'm sure for like a lot of casual and even hardcore listeners, like with you sort of like bringing the prime message of the band through lyrics, most people are probably connecting with that first, than they are sort of like what the guitar line is or the drum beat's doing, because not everybody's a musician going into these records, obviously. So, how do you feel like you're sort of like contributing to that sort of necessity being probably the first thing people are like making a connection with in terms of like the message or kind of the ethos of the band? When you are kind of like going into a song, it's like, okay, this is going to be the topic. That's going to be the topic. This is going to be the message I'm going to try to convey.
Well, I mean, honestly, I'm just trying to do a good job. Like I've been doing this for a long time, and I just want it to be good. I want it to be something that I'd be proud of, that I wouldn't be embarrassed listening to. I want people to like it. I mean, occasionally I'll be like I'm dog now. I'm like, this is like kind of a slogan. This will stick in people's head, like or send my body to Arby's or something like that. I mean, I'm not going to act like there's no intention with that, but that's like pop songwriting. You want to have something that is catchy, in some way, you know. So I don't know, but ultimately, I just want to do a good job and make it good. And I'm going to speak. I mean, like we don't have anybody telling us what to do, so I'm going to say what I want to say.
We're really lucky.
I would be remiss
in that way
not to speak my mind politically, right? Especially right now, I think more people. I wish more bands. I do it so brazenly and boldly because I want other bands to be emboldened to do that. And hopefully, someday we'll see bigger bands, more important bands than us saying real shit. But
no, I mean, there's definitely an element of it that we've been getting into that's like political, and maybe this is also an extension of that, and which, I mean, if it is, you can sort of draw that connection. But one of the things that I find most interesting about you as a writer is that you do seem to draw inspiration from so many disparate places. I mean, I think there are some lyricists and songwriters out there who are pretty consistent in terms of like what their emotional source material is a lot of the time. And with you, there are tracks where you're kind of speaking to some kind of like great social horror that you feel like you're highlighting. And then conversely, there are tracks where you're like, I'm just going to make this whole song a film reference point for like a particular franchise or scene or sort of plot line that I'm obsessed with. And again, maybe that extends out to some like kind of greater message for you, but sometimes it sort of seems like there are a lot of different places that you're zoning in on a given track.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of inspired by T.S. Eliot, who was a guy who'd write poetry, pulling all these references from disparate places and combining them into something new. What he wanted to say emotionally or poetically or whatever, I'm not saying that I'm like anything as good as.
Oh, you're not saying I thought you were saying you were as good as T.S. Eliot.
I'm just no, but I'm just inspired by like the Wasteland, like I just think I've always just been inspired by that, by just being bold and just like being like, I'm not going to explain what this is. I'm just going to toss all these, like, Brutal Truth is the most T.S. Eliot out song, but it's like 21st century trash compacting. I'm not talking about all these like Greek mythology references and stuff like that. This is all like, garbage, but that's that's sort of an inspiration for me personally.
Yeah, there's just no rules to any of this stuff, like we're allowed to do whatever we want to do. We're really lucky with being on an indie label like the Flinzer as well, where it's like I know people in bands on other labels where they're being told, well, you have to make TikToks and stuff, you have to make this, or not necessarily they're being told your art has to have this content, but we really are very lucky in our position to where, we get essentially no notes on any of that time, like on anything.
That's shocking to hear. I'm surprised the Flenser, I thought they had a reputation as backbreakers. They're not calling you guys on the phone like, guys, we need a hit on this new record, the label's going under. We need a hit.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've been a great home for us just because, I think or at least Jonathan, who is kind of the head guy over there, he just signs what he likes and kind of above all else. And even if, other people or if anyone else, it's like, it really just, if it speaks to him, he likes it. And so, I know a lot of the other bands on the label too, kind of, because we self-record, you could call us like a bedroom band in that way, or it's like, there's a lot of one man band or like bedroom projects that are, when we first signed the Flinzer, we weren't touring full time, and that was part of it. Was we were like, yeah, we could do this, but we don't want any pressure from you on that we have to go tour full time. They're like, oh no, why we never pressure any artist to do that, and that's been the case. All that stuff has just been, any of the stuff of us wanting to do more like that has kind of been, from ourselves rather than
Yeah.
that.
And on the flip side of that too, anytime that we wanted to start doing stuff, like Jonathan has been nothing but supportive and helpful. I mean, up until literally like a couple months ago, we've been doing this without any management whatsoever. And Jonathan has been like essential in helping all of us kind of navigate the sort of ins and outs of what you have to do in the industry and stuff. It's like none of us had ever like toured extensively. We've never done a movie soundtrack before, any of that kind of stuff. And
Right.
he's been there to help us out every step of the way. So props to Jonathan and the Flinzer.
Yeah, even on stuff that's coming out in the future and stuff where it's like, even if stuff that isn't necessarily on the Flinzer, he's just like, I don't know, they're just very supportive, even if because we're able to put out other stuff in other places too, and they still help with that. So
Yeah,
I think it just goes into the whole thing where it's like we don't have someone being like, oh well, it's a little too political there, maybe rein that in, or or you have to have this type of song. It's just, I don't know, it's allowed us to have a lot of freedom, and because we're just gonna make what we're gonna make. I mean, if it stops being fun and stops being fulfilling, then I don't want to do it anymore, and it's like, people have asked before, they're like, oh, how's it feel? You're living your dream. It's like, this was not my dream. I'm from Oklahoma City. I was just going to work a shitty job until I died. Like there was no reality in which, I mean, I'm just being truthful. It's like, there's no reality in which I thought it would ever be possible to do music or art full time, period. Like, it's so delusional to me.
Yeah.
Someone would go into this being like, I'm going to do this full time. Like, I just don't even comprehend that. So it's like, anything that we have or done, it's just, I don't know, it's all just gravy, kind of. And if it ends tomorrow, then I've accomplished everything I've ever wanted to. So whatever.
Yeah, dude, I met Monkey. I can die. Like,
yeah, let the nukes fall, man. Let's just, I traveled Europe with my best friends and got to write some stuff that I like. And I mean, what else is there?
I mean, the craziest thing for me, I don't know, there's so much stuff to be excited about with the trajectory of the band, that just the fact that like there are people with chat pile tattoos, or there are people literally starting bands and they cite us as like an influence. Like, I never ever thought in my life I would ever be in a position where something I made would have an impact on somebody like that. And the fact that it's happening is like well beyond. I mean, I could almost cry thinking about like just how amazing that is. It's like, we've already succeeded. We don't need to go any further, really. I mean, we will try.
Yeah, I can't go
fingers
back.
Crossed. I mean, well, speaking of that and what Luther was just saying, maybe it's too early to sort of talk about this, but like from, whatever you can give us a preview of now, like what do you guys sort of see at the moment is coming out around the corner? Are you just like working on material for a new album? Are there maybe more soundtrack opportunities in the works? Like, what is kind of like taking up the band's time creatively at the moment?
Well, we're spinning a lot of plates right now. Like, definitely we are in the process of writing a new album. But before that, back in December and January, we wrote and recorded an album with Hayden Pedigo, and that's going to be coming out this fall.
Crazy.
So
an entire album with Hayden?
Yeah. An entire album with Hayden. And like, we made it together in the room. Like, he lived a block away from me. And so he would just come over every day and we just like work on the album, because we record it at my house. And it was a really awesome experience. Like, Hayden moved to Oklahoma like last year, and I met him at a show. We hit it off, and we've become really good friends since. And we were just like, yeah, we should do an album together. And so we did. And
it's one of the easiest writing experiences for me, at least. Like, yeah, we just all got together, and some stuff was written through improv, but it's like, all of us kind of got to do different stuff. There was like a few riffs that I'd been wanting to use for a while that I just couldn't really figure out to do in a more traditional chat pile-y way, and got to use some of that stuff there. But I mean, yeah, we kind of banged it out in like 3 to 4 weeks. It was kind of crazy, and I love it. I think it's some of our most interesting stuff. I
agree.
It's definitely a departure. It could probably just be a different band name if we wanted to do that, but there's still Chat Piley stuff in there as well, and you could definitely hear Hayden's like his style in there, and very different types of music what he's doing with like the American primitivism stuff and our kind of more rhythm oriented, noise rock, whatever you want to call it. But I don't know. We both have kind of, even his music kind of captures some of the like Western bleakness in a way, or just
it does.
And it actually kind of has fit together in a way where it's like, I think I hope people like it. I think it's pretty interesting personally. So we'll see. But yeah.
No, there's definitely a synergy there.
Yeah, well, 100%. We're all really proud of it. In fact, I got dinner with Hayden last night and we were talking about it, and we just kind of can't get over how proud we are of it. So even if it comes out and nobody likes it, like we definitely like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that'll be coming out this fall. And then in the meantime, we're just going to just lock down and try to we're going to attempt to overwrite for an album for once. We've never been that type of band. We're not like super prolific, but we have tons of demo ideas. And we're going to spend from now until springtime just writing as many songs as humanly possible and seeing what we can do with it. And then in the middle of all that, we have we're supporting Fleshwater on a 3-week tour in the US. So that's kind of all that's on the agenda right now.
Okay. And before you guys head out, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, just because I have been curious for a minute, on Twitter, who in the band is on Car Crash Watch? Because it's such a wonderful and consistent part of the band's social media presence that you guys keep up with just all of the into home car crashes in Oklahoma City. And it's really interesting. You guys sort of seem to cover it all from again, through the living room walls to a go-kart going into the garage.
That's the, of all the tragedies that Elon has brought us, it's that I'm no longer using Twitter anymore. So I haven't been keeping up with the car crashes anymore. Right. But maybe one day if something happens and Twitter becomes okay again, I'll jump back on there and keep up with it. But it really does
Instagram.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. But see, I have to find it through Twitter is the problem.
That's true.
Yeah,
because it's through the local news and stuff. But yeah, Stin does all our social media stuff. If you ever see a funny thing or any of that stuff, it's him doing it. But I mean, as far as the car crash stuff goes, it's just, as long as Oklahoman drivers keep getting drunk and driving their cars into a 7-Eleven, we'll
be there like we'll Batman, be there.
We used to occasionally. We used to,
I know I have full on Nightcrawler style. Like someone been like, "Yo, a car just crashed into like this intersection," and I jump in my car and like go over there and take a picture.
I mean, it's got to make it onto an album cover eventually at some point. Or some single or something.
I tried to sneak one of them in and it got vetoed, rightfully so, because the picture just didn't turn out all that great. But one of these days we'll incorporate it into something.
Yeah, it's got to be a good picture. Eventually, if you keep doing it, it'll turn up. You'll get a great pic of it eventually.
We've used them as a backdrop at live shows before, where it's like, do you guys have like a logo or something? And we're like, I think you've said, go to Google and find the funniest image of a car crashing into a house you can find, dealer's choice, and then the venue guy puts it up.
Yeah, it just pops up while we're playing. We're like, good job.
Yeah, that one's pretty funny. But yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for coming on and talking to me, and just again being open books and having a conversation. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, thanks for having us. So much. Yeah, anytime, man.
All right. Cool World is out now. Hopefully you've listened to it. If you haven't, please do. And then buy it on vinyl.
Yes, please.
Don't be a dickhead. Listen to this fucking band. You guys have a good one. Have a good rest of your day.
Yep.
Take care, man.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Later.